Isaure, thanks for joining us to talk about the very intriguing topic of curiosity as a competitive edge to a young leader.
Thank you, Martin, for having me. It's a pleasure to be here and to talk about this topic.
So we don't often see curiosity mentioned among the soft skills for leadership, but when did you personally become curious about curiosity, and what was the trigger for that?
Well, since the beginning of humanity, every human is naturally curious because we're hardwired to be curious in order to survive. The leaders of the groups were often defined by how far they found out about the food, ways to protect themselves, way to survive. If you apply this in a business context, the people that are always more curious, that go a little further, they will have more opportunities than others because they pushed it a little further. They were a little more curious than others, and it does not cost you much for what you can get from this. Personally, I don't think I had a particular trigger for curiosity. However, it's more something you developed from childhood in that you maintain and you cultivate as a skill, but also something for yourself.
So you mentioned about competitive edge. Tell me in a little bit more detail, perhaps with an example of how you feel curiosity provides that competitive edge in a practical setting.
Right now, in our finance specialization, we are currently working on a project for hotel development in Prague. And we did a lot of research, of course, but there are some elements like informations which are not all over the internet. You have to do really specific research with specific websites, which we did with my team. And if we didn't go through these extra efforts, we wouldn't have found out that the whole area is going to be redesigned by a famous architect, Isaure Yeodet. And because we found out this information, we were able to select a brand and also a segment which is appropriate and in line, and it helps us have a vision. So this example really illustrates that when you are doing extra research, as I mentioned, you have more information, and information is power because you get a competitive edge over others which did not go through that extra effort. So I believe curiosity will give you more opportunities, the opportunity to also shine, but you should not forget something very important, that when you are curious, of course you will learn more, but it has the advantage, the benefit to also make you understand there's so much to learn, which puts you in a position of humility. And humility is crucial for leaders.
Talking of leaders, can you pick a leader in business that you know who you feel best exemplifies these benefits of being curious?
For sure. So it's not a famous person. However, it's someone I met across during a work experience. I was working in the Ritz Paris in revenue management, and the team consisted of just me and the revenue manager. So I had the chance to be working really close with someone with a really 360 degrees insight over the hotel and experience-wise. This person was very proactive in his everyday life, reading newspaper, getting information, talking with colleagues, talking with other revenue managers from other hotels, competitors. He really encouraged me to go inform myself, be aware of the environment, to just read from really reliable sources like Financial Times, for example, Le Monde, which is one of the newspaper in France, these very official and really structured papers to understand the environment, my surroundings. As a consequence of these, you can make more aware decisions. You can sharpen your strategic thinking and adapt your decisions to the environment and the situation. He also taught me something that I had in me, but he helped me take it out of myself. He's a person, as I mentioned, who's curious as well. So he knows a lot of fun facts, and when he's with his colleagues, he pops out a fun fact during the conversations. And it automatically makes you shine, makes you funny, makes you appreciated by others. Instead of gossiping or talking or criticizing, you're here, you're fun, you're interesting, and so it's very good for your networking to have a few fun facts about the industry, the environment, food, wines, things that can talk to everybody.
Now you mentioned curiosity being part of human nature since the time of man, since the dawn of man. How do we ensure, though, that we don't kind of lose that natural curiosity as we sort of like as we get older? I mean, is it almost something like fitness that can be that we can train into ourselves to stay curious?
As you mentioned, it comes from childhood. You are naturally wired to be curious. And it's something you keep throughout your life, depending on two things, I believe: passion and ambition. It's not necessarily ambition in career context, but ambition in your life. If you aspire to some goals, you write them down, and once you have them written down, you ask yourself, how do I get there? And from this point, it's when you start asking questions and you're looking for answers. And when you have this structure in your mind, you can definitely start to get more curious about this in general. I think also something that is really important that people are losing a lot is reading. Reading articles, reading books, even if it's not about essay, even if it's just a novel, to work on your imagination, to work your creativity. I think the more reading resources you have, the better, the more inspired, the more resourceful you actually become. So I think it's a process which is not always like, I'm curious, I will do this, I'm curious, I will do this. It's more things to nourish your mind, because in life there's not only monetary wealth, there's also intelligence wealth, there's also networking capital, there's also emotional intelligence, and these are what makes you wealthy inside and makes you interesting and survive with success and brilliance in this world.
Now, you're in BBA 7, so you will have done your 2 professional internships, and you've already mentioned sort of the benefits of curiosity in a leader, in someone else that you were working with. But from your own perspective, can you think back to a time when your own personal curiosity put you in a good place during that time?
Absolutely. Thank you for asking this question, Martin. So there are 2 experiences that we had in Glion. The first internship, which is operational, and the second one, which is more in the administration. So I can give you an example from both of them. The first one I did in the south of France during COVID, in the Capitaine in Antibes, and I was working in the gastronomical restaurant as a waiter. And the condition for every waiter in the world is that if you do not know the menu, you do not get to go on the floor. So logically, you have to learn the menu inside out. You have to learn the cooking techniques, what this word, what this spice means. These are details that are important to know in order to advise the client the best, upsell, cross-sell, and to be a great waiter. And so when I received the menu to learn, I had a lot of questions, and I did my little investigation because I got curious. And this got me to be actually on the floor on the first night when I had no experience, when I was new to this, and they trusted me with this because I knew the menu. And some clients asked me detailed questions that we were not trained to learn. And this allowed me to really advise them properly and to have their appreciation, to get a tip. So that was appreciated, really rewarding. And then in the second internship, as I mentioned, it was in the Ritz Paris in revenue management. In revenue management, you have a system, an application where you have a calendar with all the major events happening in the city. However, everything is not written. You can miss out. It's linked to Google, but Google doesn't always reference these events. I decided to narrow and filter and still go through research in case an event was missed out and therefore revenue missed out. So I actually thought it was a good idea to research, to get some calls and ask people around as well. And we found out that there was Art Basel, which is a major contemporary art exhibition coming to Paris during October, right after Fashion Week. It was not everywhere. It's actually a very confidential world, a really tiny world, which is not splashed around everywhere. So based on this, we raised our rates, and we also worked on the catching this demand revenue. And because we found out about this, we were able to really increase the revenue and to do a better month than September, which is the Fashion Week. So really, it's doing a little extra research just out of curiosity can give you great benefit, but also tiny success, tiny rewards which you would not expect, and therefore new opportunities in life.
It's all fascinating insights. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you, Martin. Thank you so much for your time and for having me.